I think the best thing that you can do is do research and figure out if there's intent and research that mesh well together. So say there's an intent signal on the account level that they're hiring for, let's say in this case, product managers. Then if you could also find, so that's your intent, and you can do research and figure out who's the hiring manager and probe a little bit deeper into that. And you can probably come to the assumption that there's a new feature launch if they're hiring new product managers. So I think the best case scenario is if you can combine that research with that intent signal together.
Welcome to Triangle Tweener Talks, a weekly podcast by builders for builders where we explore the startup journey from the idea to the exit and all the lessons in between, with an exclusive focus on founders from the Triangle region of North Carolina. Now here's your host, serial founder and general partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scott Wingo.
First, a huge thank you to our gold sponsors. On today's podcast, we are featuring Valentine, from founder to steward. We guide entrepreneurs through growth, succession, and liquidity with an eye on what comes next. We'd also like to recognize our silver sponsors. Today, we are featuring Automated Consulting Group. Ready to transform your business with AI? Automated Consulting Group delivers executive workshops, fractional CAIO guidance, and custom AI solutions built for your business. Thank you again to all of our sponsors for supporting Triangle Tweener Talks and the entire Triangle startup community. It takes an ecosystem to build a thriving community, and sponsors like these are very valuable, and they contribute their time and also help sponsor things like the Triangle Tweener Talks and Triangle Tweener Times. Thank you. Welcome to this episode of North Carolina Tweener Talks. I'm your host, Scott Wingo. Today's podcast is a little bit of adventure. So we recently have been posting about 2026 AI augmentations for founders. We started with productivity hacks. This is all on Tweener Times. And we started with some productivity hacks. And then we did health, how to use AI in your health for founders. And then we talked about go-to-market, and then finally your dev stack. So your go-to-market stack and your dev stack. One of the interesting trends post the launch of ChatGPT in 2022 is the use of AI in the go-to-market stack. It has become super prevalent, and it's created a new role. And that role is called go-to-market engineer, commonly called GTM Eng. So you actually shorten the engineered Eng and go to market to GTM Eng. I became aware of this by listening to Lenny's podcast. They had someone on from, I think it was Vercel or Replit or one of those. And this has become as popular as forward deployed engineers in Silicon Valley. So it's a trend I've been watching closely. One day on my LinkedIn feed, almost the day I hit publish on that go-to-market AI piece that was very popular, I saw someone at Pendo say, hey, being a year into go-to-market Eng has been amazing. Here's some of the stuff I've done. His name was Evan Inscoe, and I was connected to him, and I didn't remember how. That will actually come up on the podcast. And I said, hey, this is kind of out of nowhere, but I would love to have you on the podcast to talk about what a bigger company like Pendo is doing, which has, a giant sales team. How are you guys using these AI tools, and what is the function of go-to-market engineering? And Evan was very excited. He ran the gates there at Pendo, and we were able to get him on the podcast. So that's the only prep I'm going to give you, because this is a really great conversation that I learned so much on this conversation that I'm going to use in my day-to-day at my companies. And I think you're going to learn a lot on this one too. So definitely, you may want to take some notes, because Evan talks fast and goes through lots of different things. We're going to provide the transcript and try to link out to a lot of the tools he talks about here. But we went through a lot of different processes. It was kind of a journey of exploration for me to kind of like ask the right questions to understand how they're using it. And I think by the end, it all fit together for me. Hopefully it does for you. If it doesn't, leave a comment on the podcast or out on our content, and we will make sure you understand that. Here's my conversation with Evan. I hope you enjoy it and learn as much as I did. Welcome to North Carolina Tweener Talks, where we have conversations for folks building companies here in the North Carolina area. Today, my guest is Evan Inscoe. He is the go-to-market engineer at Pendo. Hey, Evan, how are you?
Doing well. I appreciate you having me on, Scott.
Awesome. Welcome to the show. So I have been somewhat obsessed with this idea of a go-to-market engineer, and I've been wondering, and then also I published on Tweener Times an article about how to go-to-market is changing. And in there, I talked a little bit about that not the specific role, but like all the different tools people are using, and they're what we call go-to-market stack. And that was like one of the most popular articles we've put out. Serendipitously, you put a LinkedIn post out talking about some of the stuff you were doing at Pendo. And I was like, wait a minute, this is amazing. There's a local person at Pendo that is really living and breathing this. I wonder if he would be kind enough to come on the show. And here we are.
Yeah, no, here we are. I've been watching your LinkedIn for a while, and you're usually ahead of the AI curve before I am. So I do a good amount of learning from you too. And super excited to hop on and learn from you as well.
Awesome. So now you get to pay it forward. That's what we're all about here in our ecosystem. And you guys have Pendemonium coming up. That must be. I saw. I got the teaser that Todd's got a big new product to announce. So I would ask you, but I know A, you may not even know, but B, if you did, you would. I don't want to get you in trouble, but it's going to be here locally. We all see all the cool folks you guys bring to town, and appreciate you guys continuing to do that show here in the Triangle. I think that's I've never seen anyone talk about the benefit to the area, but that's a huge thing. And I've told this to Todd and everybody, but we really appreciate you all doing that. Well, this will be your first Pendemonium, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've heard the buzz since I joined back in May, and I've been excited for it ever since. It seems like it's got a lot of hype around it, and we're doing a lot to try and drive some registrants there. So super excited to see it in about 2 months.
Save your energy and stock up on your Red Bulls, because it looks like I've never had the pleasure of being. It's always during another show I go to. But I can tell it's like we used to do these types of shows at Channel Advisor, and it was exhausting for everyone in the company, but exhilarating at the same time. So have fun at that. We should promote it. Tell us when is Pendemonium, and that you guys have it down at not the convention center, but the Martin Marietta theater area there, right?
Yep, you got it. Pendemonium is going to be the week of the 23rd. We're super excited. If you want to catch me, I'll be at Tuesday. I have a 6:30 shift. So very early in the morning, but it'll be the week of the 23rd.
Yeah, March 24th to 26th. So awesome. So just go to Pendo's site, and it's a big banner there. You can't miss it. Okay, so let's start with your background. So I frequently, as I've been digging into this go-to-market engineer, they come from all kind of walks of life. What was your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started kind of using ChatGPT right when it landed in November of 2022, and was a daily user immediately for all the things that are now cliche, but were groundbreaking back then, like what to meal prep and just basic emails, and most importantly at the time, doing my homework.
So you were in school. Was that high school, college? Where?
Yeah, that would have been about my freshman year of college.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to North Carolina State University, so I could see it right down the way from the Pendo office. So it's close to me, so close to home.
Awesome. Yeah.
I was definitely using AI to like plan my grocery lists way before I ever used it for pipeline or anything else, and quickly became AI first before I even knew what that meant. Kind of getting known as the AI guy in class. And after kind of skipping ahead a couple of years, getting very familiar with prompt engineering and how to get the most out of AI, I became a BDR here at Pendo, and was a BDR for a couple of months. And very naturally, it's like, how can I use AI to make my job a little bit easier? And that went from email bots to call script bots to LinkedIn audio message bots, all using ChatGPT. And the team hadn't seen anything like it, and it kind of spread like wildfire. So that was kind of the introduction to how I got used to AI, what I was using it for, and kind of how it translated in my first couple of months as a BDR as well.
Let's pause there. So you went to NC State, and what'd you study?
Business administration with a concentration on entrepreneurship.
And you reminded me, when I reached out, that we had actually met. Tell everyone about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So in Chris Little's entrepreneurship class, he'd hyped up that Scott Wingo is coming for a couple weeks, and that we all had to be on our very best behavior, very attentive. And I was pretty familiar with what you'd done. I'd been to a couple entrepreneurship events in Raleigh, and heard your name through networking multiple times. So I was super excited to see you come. and you did about an hour-long session about Spiffy. And I think the most interesting part about that session that stands out to me today was nailing your hiring profile down to the absolute T, down to what they do, what they like, how old are they, everything about them. That kind of stuck with me just in the critical thinking in the business context.
And then you graduate from Pool and you got this BDR job at Pendo. Was that your first gig?
Yep, that was the first gig right out of college.
That's not an easy gig to get, so congrats on that. And then tell everyone what a BDR is, and then what that day is like at a company like Pendo. Just because, there's a lot of. It's kind of funny. Like we have a lot of the same roles, but they change name over time. So BDR was SDR, and then it used to be called inside sales back in the day. That's the old school. That's the OG name for it.
Yeah, so I guess across companies, there's BDRs, SDRs, and then XDRs, which live in the middle, and they all are defined a little bit differently. But the common denominator between them is pretty much you're going to be outbounding all day, prospecting, finding leads, customizing emails to those leads, and then eventually getting the right to call those leads as well, ultimately booking a 15 to 30 minute meeting to see if Pendo would be a good fit.
And then are you booking them for a sales exec, or the BDR has the initial meeting and then transfers over it? Like when do they hand off?
Good question. Yeah. So the discovery call immediately is handed off to the account executive.
So you call them AEs. Got it. So this is another thing. Every company has different. So some are SEs, some are AEs. And so you were one of the few BDRs that was just kind of using all these tools, and so that in itself is interesting. It seems like Pendo has a culture of entrepreneurial behavior that allowed this. Like, did you have to go ask, or you just started doing it and that's like part of the Pendo culture?
Yeah, so it was awesome. Right when I got in, we already had our licenses for ChatGPT. So Pendo really lets the BDRs own their book of business and go about it in any which way they'd like to. And if they see patterns that are good, they'll try and promote those patterns. But ultimately, if you're hitting quota, it's no worries. You just do what works best for you. And that kind of breeds that entrepreneurship culture you're talking about.
Another thing founders always, as founders scale, and somewhere around 5 or 10 million, you have to make some interesting decisions around how you split up the world, right? Like the addressable market. Just super broad strokes, does Pendo do geographies, industries? Like when you were a BDR, how would you define your patch?
Yeah, it'd be regions and geographies.
Did they do the thing where if you're West Coast, you should probably come in a little bit later in the day to kind of like match the hours of your region?
Not quite. They'll usually, there's definitely people that stay late because they're gritty, but typically they just call whenever the time works best for them.
And I know Todd is super passionate about the in-office culture, and you guys have probably the most amazing office, certainly in the Triangle. And I imagine as a BDR, were you in office for that role?
Oh, yep. In office every day, still in office. Friday's always optional, but I know every company loves to brag about their cultures, but Pendo's truly is unmatched. We're just a big friend group in the office. So you kind of get made fun of if you don't come in on Friday because you just want to see your buddies. So we're always in all the time.
You're a BDR, you start using AI, and then it started to spread. And then someone from HR called, and you're like, "Oh no, I'm going to get fired." And it was actually like, how did that progress into go to market engineering?
Yeah, good question. So it started out, I was introduced to a founder named Jack Porter who created a signals-based app called Bird Dog. And he gave me a free trial, and I was giving it a go, and I really liked it. And I hadn't talked to our director of business development yet, but I was like, "Hey, I know I'm probably too new here, but would you mind taking a look at this tool?" And that turned into like an hour-long strategy AI conversation. We're thinking about what we disagree, where we do agree, where AI is going, where the BDR role is going. And ultimately, 3 days later, I started a new role, which I was not expecting at all, called AI pipeline engineer, which we didn't know was just a go-to-market engineer, which is my current role now. So it's a pretty quick turnaround.
So you kind of just earned your way into it by being innovative, trying these things, and not feeling like you had to live in a box of the tools that were just given to you. You used that Pendo culture to go expand out, try these things, and you got rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's doing the job before you get the job. So I was making AI bots for other people and lifting the team that way. So I think it was a no-brainer when I guess the interviews kind of rolled around.
I should have asked this at the beginning. Where are you from? North Carolina? Where are you from?
Born and raised in Cary, so not too far, about 25 minutes away.
Caryite, awesome. And then where does this? So I meet a lot of folks your age, and your generation gets a kind of a bum rap about being kind of lazy and like not wanting to go in the office and stuff. And you're clearly not that. Where does that internal drive come from? Is this like watching your parents? You just like insatiably? Like where's that coming from?
Yeah, I would say we were definitely having business conversations at the dinner table when I was way too young to understand them. So I did get a good amount of business context before I probably should. So it definitely gave me a drive and a passion for business in general. But on top of that, like, it's cliche to say, but I genuinely love what I do, and I feel like I'm on the edge of AI and breaking something new every day, or breaking into something new every day. So I just absolutely love what I do. So I'm super excited to go tinker around.
And then was one of your parents entrepreneur or something, or were they? Why were you talking about business at the dinner table?
Yeah, so mom and dad both work at Cisco, and actually my sister did. My sister does as well. So we got renewals in the family, we got some sales in the family, we got some communications in the family as well. So we have a good mix. It usually gets to some pretty interesting dinner conversations right about now.
Yeah, I bet your home Wi-Fi is pretty good too.
Yeah, no, it is.
Dad or mom have the latest router and running the latest protocols.
They hooked us up.
Cisco family. Okay, so then so you were an AI pipeline engineer, and then at that point you moved from smiling and dialing, as we say in the BDR world, coffees for closers and all those movies. Have you watched all the movies?
No, I haven't. I'm not a big movie guy. I wish I was.
We'll have to catch you up on this. You can watch little viral clips. That'll be enough. We'll give you the Reader's Digest version. And so, what did your role change to at AI pipeline engineer? So that help us understand what you were doing at that point. And we'll just call it go-to-market engineer because it's essentially the same thing.
So it was interesting. We'd never had one, and the go-to-market engineer was coined in 2023. So people didn't really know what to do with a go-to-market engineer. They just knew we needed one. And with that, my boss gave me a lot of trust that I was going to go figure out what the next best thing was. And we did a lot of vision setting. And with that, the role slowly evolved. In the first week, I was doing a lot of research. Second week, I was experimenting. Third week, I was starting to put things into action. And overall, the role kind of started getting a job description and jobs to be done and things to maintain. So it's definitely an evolving role, which I think you'll see in a lot of different organizations. The go-to-market engineer role can look a little bit different, but have some of the same underlying factors.
Yeah. Did they frame it as an experiment, or they're like, listen, Evan, we're going to let you do this for 6 months, and if we see the productivity of the team go up, that's awesome. You can keep doing it. Otherwise, we'll fold you back in? Or was it like, we're committed to this, we're burning the bridges and the boats full speed ahead, this is going to be a thing?
Yeah, so my boss was pretty clear that this is the direction that he believes BDR world is heading, and that they need support from the AI side. And he understood that it was risky for me, given we didn't know what the jobs to be done were. But I have a lot of faith in him that he was going to kind of make sure I had job security nonetheless. And I'm young enough where I was comfortable taking that risk. So never took the risk, never really looked back. Job feels very secure right now. So looking good.
It worked for you the one time, so might as well keep rolling.
Yeah, exactly.
Risk it for the biscuit, as
there you go.
Folks your age would say. I don't understand why the biscuit's involved in the risk, but I guess the biscuit's the reward. So you're doing some research, and at that point you had already had some experience, with some tooling that you had worked on. And we can walk through this, but a lot of times this role is involved with enrichment of leads, discovery. So there's like a funnel, right? There's discovery of leads, there's enrichment, and then there's kind of like automating the BDR function. How do we make them more efficient? And inside of there, you have things like Gong for recording things. So the less time the rep is spending time entering data and that type of thing, and more time having conversations. So optimizing that part. And then there's a whole set beyond that. Were you picking apart this whole thing? Where were you in that stack of thinking about things?
Right. Yeah. So right when I started out, we got straight to the whiteboard, and we were thinking about what does a BDR's day-to-day look like. They have this strategic, as we call it, which is extremely personalized targeted accounts. And then we have this strategic velocity, which is somewhere in the middle. Maybe a signal came off, and the velocity, which is like, let's get these emails out. And with that, we're like, okay, where does AI fit in best first? What do the BDRs hate doing the most? What's taking the most time, and kind of reverse engineering it from that perspective.
So you were thinking less of the pipeline and more of like a pie chart of the BDR time, and how do you chop off the unproductive parts of that pie chart, and like really, so the 100% of the pie chart, you'll never get there, but maybe you get to 99% and you get rid of the unproductive things. just so folks understand, what are some of the unproductive things? And you lived the role as a BDR, and it's probably what inspired you to use the chat tools. What are some of the unproductive things in that job that just kind of eat time, that's not helpful?
I would say one of the number one things is consolidation of where the BDRs are spending their time. BDRs are researching in this one tab. They're creating a sequence over here. And by the end of the day, they have 4 or 5 tabs they're clicking through to get one campaign launched off the ground. And it's like, how can we give them everything they need in one spot? And what is the tool that does that? So doing a lot of research on things like that. Another one is research in general. I think a lot of sellers have realized research matters less and less, and timing and intent is mattering more and more. So how can we send the right message to the right person at the right time as often as possible? So figuring those 2 things out were the brunt of it.
And then the 4 tab thing's interesting, because behind there is like, not only is there 4 tabs, but it's 4 different systems with 4 logins, and they all have 2-factor authentication. So just like getting started, it's like starting your car and having to like figure out like how to get each cylinder going or something, like, because, and then even then, like, so even when you get it started, it's still a pain in the butt, because the interface is different. There's no these things can be synchronized, but it's always kind of broken and copy and that kind of thing. So there's more than just like putting them in one user interface. Is like one login, make it all seamless, make it fully integrated, so you have a 360 view of everything going on, and you don't have to like keep all that in your head.
And I think on top of that, you go even further up the funnel, just onboarding. Onboarding onto something rather than 5 somethings is a lot easier and a lot more digestible.
Let's stay on that one. Let's kind of talk about, let's kind of go to where we are today, and in this story. So how long have you been doing the role?
Working on 9 months so far.
9 months. So about a year. And how have so we started with that pie chart. Where are you today? Have you had some pretty good impact on that? And what are some of the things that again, to the extent you can talk about it, what are some of the things that you guys have found that are super high impact in it? And then I also want to dig in on this intent signal thing. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, intent signals is a big piece. I think, like I said, the highest impact starting off is like, where can we get the BDR spending the most time possible in one place? And then also, what are the out-of-the-box tools that are doing this for us? So we don't have to get the product team together with the AI team and me and talk with different BDRs. What do you want? Where do you want it? So we definitely got a tool stack that complements the BDRs really well. But then we're also starting to automate some forms of leads coming in, and make sure that the BDRs are just doing what they are very best at, which is hopping on the phones and having those personal relationships with these prospects. Those are the main pieces. Then the other big lifts that the go-to-market engineers help out with is these one-time campaigns. Say we needed to increase visibility in this industry, or we need to follow up with this one event. And now we have tools like Clay that really help with these one-time campaigns getting extremely personalized in a short amount of time to help that time to value and speed to lead. And that's kind of where we've seen the biggest jump.
Yes. So one thing I found talking to people about is there tends to be a Clay camp and an Apollo camp, and then there's an Innate-in. Is that how you say that one? Innate-in? I've always, okay. And some people use those as an orchestration layer. And then other times they'll use the enrichment. They all kind of like had a lane when they first came out. And now they've all expanded in each other's lanes. So it's super confusing. So would you say, tell a little bit more about how you guys use Clay? Is it the enrichment piece? Is it the, I think you called them, I call them drip campaigns. You called them sequences, I think is what you said. Do you use it for the sequences, or is that where the intent signals are coming from?
So the intent signals are coming from all kinds of places. We have a lot in our tool stack that gets us different intent signals, but Clay is really good at the specific intent signals that are outside the box that are very specific to Pendo. Now, what is Clay doing? It's awesome because Clay can do just about anything you want it to do, which is probably why it's pretty hard to sell, right? But what I'm using it for specifically is when we get somebody, we can enrich, when we get a prospect, we can enrich that prospect's phone number and email and talk about tool consolidation. Once I get that phone number and email, I can also pull their LinkedIn, see which parts of their LinkedIn is relevant to Pendo, and get something extremely personalized out to them in a matter of minutes after that signal goes off. And that time to value has just been massive for us.
let's talk about intent signals for a while. So, you know, I imagine. So I'm just going to guess, and I don't obviously work at Pendo, but I know enough to be dangerous. So there's kind of like a hard signal, like okay, someone came to the forum and they filled out a form that says "contact me." That's a pretty obvious signal, right? They're pretty engaged. They're in the pipeline. Someone's coming to Pandemonium. Someone and then there's like website visits. This is my favorite new technology. We use RB2B, and then we also use one that starts with F, factors. We actually use both. And this one's pretty interesting because one of them will tie to LinkedIn. So they'll see something on LinkedIn, and we can kind of like pull that in, or they'll see something on your website and engage with it without even filling a form, and it will decode who they are and or what company they're at, and that will be a signal that we can fill in. That's what we're using it for, that type of stuff at Refi Buy. Are those, did I miss any of the big intent signals? Or like, what are some other examples that would kind of be something that you think is a good thing that you would fire a sequence on?
Yep. So all those signals that you were just referencing were great inbound signals. So that would be going to our SDR team. So those are the main big ones. Now for our outbound team, one of the best signals that we'll get typically is a previous customer who has now moved to a new company. So they're obviously very familiar with Pendo. You know how many hours they've used Pendo, and you can reach out to them and guess that it's probably a pretty warm contact. But on top of that, you can also get some account level signals as well for our outbounders, such as X company launched this new product, or X company got this series of funding. And then you can pull which context might be relevant to that announcement and get something personalized out to them too.
One piece of context I was missing is I didn't realize you guys have SDR and BDR. So if I'm parsing what you're saying right, you have a whole nother team that takes inbound and qualifies it, but BDRs are 100% outbound.
Yep, you got it.
So you guys have refined it that far. Okay.
Yeah, so our SDR team is about 3 or 4 people, and our BDR team is about 31 people.
Are you supporting the SDR, or do they have their own GTM engineering?
I'm supporting about half of the SDRs, and then there's somebody in marketing who's doing a great job with Clay as well, and she's doing the other half.
Okay, a little competition. You have to see if
she's beating me out. I usually tend to.
Come on, Evan.
With the BDRs a little bit.
Double down, buddy.
She's got me.
You've got to support 31 other people. You got a lot of mouths to feed over there. They're hungry, and yep, really interesting. So what's the type of I receive a lot of these, and I'm a well-known Star Wars fan, and when I get them, especially the Gong people are the most aggressive. So when I get these inbounds from Gong, they'll actually record a little video, and they're in there, and they'll and it's funny. It's like someone your age, but it's usually female, and you can tell she's never watched Star Wars. So it's super inauthentic, and it just makes me laugh hilariously because they're like, hi, Scott, I'm Sarah, and I hear you're a big Star Wars fan, and Gong is kind of like the Force. It gives you a superpower. And I'm like, okay. Bonus points for researching that, but it's kind of a stretch to try to tie Gong. And Gong is it's like a transcriber recorder kind of mechanism. Do you guys use a mechanism like that? Is that like are you guys a Gong shop?
We're not a Gong shop, but we do have a recorder.
You said intent is better than research. So does that mean you're really not doing a lot on the research side, or are you also helping on research?
I think the best thing that you can do is do research and figure out if there's intent and research that mesh well together. So say there's an intent signal on the account level that they're hiring for, let's say in this case, product managers. Then if you could also find, so that's your intent, and you can do research and figure out who's the hiring manager and probe a little bit deeper into that. And you can probably come to the assumption that there's a new feature launch if they're hiring new product managers. So I think the best case scenario is if you can combine that research with that intent signal together to get a pretty amazing email.
Okay, so another outbound signal that you guys would look for is they're hiring kind of within the field that you want to be selling to. Interesting. Okay. This is making my head spin. Okay. So Clay is kind of sitting there, and it's kind of like the spider in the middle of the web, right? It's got all these tentacles reaching out and seeing these intent signals. And then does it route to the BDR, or the BDR is kind of like driving Clay? Is it the Is it like seeing all this intent and saying, all right, who's up next in round robining and following your rules of engagement? Or I'm a BDR, Clay is my sidekick and running alongside of me? Like how do you structure that?
It's a great question. So the latter half of that is Clay's my sidekick. That's actually something that Clay's rolling out where it can be a talking interface. But right now, Clay's pretty technical. To get in there is definitely a bit of a learning curve. So I'm operating Clay for the BDR team right now. And each account, each contact will have a ROE, rights of engagement, SDR. And Clay recognizes, hey, Evan Inscoe is supposed to get this lead. Let me add this to sequence for Evan Inscoe. You come in the next morning, you check your email outbox. Hey, I've got to send this message. Let me make sure Clay didn't say anything too crazy and send it on out.
So BDRs are also on an account by account basis. They're assigned to that particular. So, let's pick I don't know, Sprint, I don't know if they're calling big companies or mid-market, but, company X, and I am the BDR on that. An intent signal comes, and then Clay knows to route that to me. Got it. Okay. The one 3-letter acronym we haven't used yet, which is pretty interesting, is CRM. So where does that come into this whole picture? You haven't mentioned it all, which I think is we've gone 30 minutes without mentioning the CRM, which I think is kind of telling on its own right, because it's kind of becoming a bit of a dumb database in this new world. But can you share what you guys, where does that come into the picture here?
Yeah, I mean, CRM's still super important. That's going to be our source of truth. With that, when a signal fires, we want to route that back to the CRM as well. So the CRM's updated from the contact level to the account level as well. That, hey, this happened on this date. But on top of that, once we're enriching these phone numbers and emails, we want to make sure that we hold on to that data. So if we need it again in 5 months or so, we have the correct data. So we'll also update the CRM there. And then ultimately our sequencer being a sync with our CRM as well, getting the correct activity date. When was the person reached out to? We never want to do a spray approach where we're bombarding everybody at once. So we're kind of syncing with the CRM 3 different times at the beginning, middle, and end.
So it's kind of like the database, basically. So the orchestration layer makes sure that, it probably has a check and balance in there. Like, have I sent a message to this person already? And if so, then I need to slow my roll a little bit and think about, add it to a queue. You probably have some policies is probably a light word, but you have some rules of engagement where you don't want to ping someone every hour or something within a 1 week time or something.
Typically how we set that up is we don't want to hit somebody with the same message in 2 months, or we'll never hit somebody with the same message. But on the Clay table level, I can just filter out anybody before they get enriched. So we're not spending money on them, and make sure that they're not getting a message a little bit too soon.
This is like a third order question, but some people listening will have been this deep. Clay has this really interesting thing called a waterfall mechanism. You're obviously familiar with that. Explain to mere mortals like myself, when you would use the cool waterfall functionality.
Yeah, so small businesses tend to not use waterfalls too much because they can bring their own APIs, which is, let's say you have something like Find Email, which is an email resource. You could connect that to Clay and use that instead of a waterfall, and it tends to be a good bit cheaper. But if you were to use a waterfall and you needed this email to be 100% accurate, Clay has a pre-negotiated contract with something like 15 or 17 different email vendors. So if Find Email can't find it, then Wizza will go next, and so on and so on. And every time that a provider can't find it, you are not charged for that. You're only charged when they do return you a phone number or email.
And the idea is this email is very valuable to you, and you're willing to pay up for it. And if you meter it out, it is set up to be as efficient as possible, which is kind of nice. So I'm sure they saw someone doing this, and they just basically automated it and put it into one surface, kind of like what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and actually, shout out to Clay. Just yesterday, they came out with a new pricing structure that makes it a little bit cheaper. It was not the most competitive pricing before yesterday, but they've knocked down that price a little bit. So good on them.
Yeah, I was going to say you must be burning through usage tokens like a wild man over there. Was that kind of a fun conversation with your boss? Did you know going into this you needed a bit of a budget for this, or was he like, you have essentially unlimited budget if you're making the sales team more efficient? How did that conversation go?
Yeah, I think by proving that I'm always going to try and figure out how to make this as cost efficient as possible, and I always get really excited when I figure out how I can save a couple coins here and there. And my boss laughs at how excited I get. But anyways, yeah, I'll get excited about that. So they know when I'm building something, I probably have a pretty good business case, and that I'm doing it as cheaply as possible and not just trying to speed run it. So usually pretty comfortable conversations. But at the beginning, when I was seeing some of the payments that we were having to make, I was like, holy cow, that was just in my bank account like last month. So it definitely is pretty nuts to look at.
But what is it like? How many you're supporting? You said 31 plus half that other team, so let's call it 35ish. If you can, if you can make them each twice as productive, that's going to generate so much pipeline that it totally makes sense. Yeah, at the end of the day, yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely had to pull some data and show that it has been well worth it, and that it has.
Yeah, again, I don't want to know any proprietary information. And I'm kind of in my mind, I'm kind of seeing a chart that's like before and after. And in the before, there's that pie chart you talked about. And maybe your BDRs were using 30% of their time wasn't productive, and now it's like, give me an idea of like broad strokes how you've impacted using the go-to-market AI technologies, how that's had an impact.
It's had an impact directly on the BDRs just by making them more efficient and getting those leads kind of right at their doorstep most days. And they're loving that. So they really do just get to call on some personalized emails, making it a little bit warmer. But also what we haven't gotten into is the go-to-market engineer is pretty different depending on what companies you go to. So I've also been building dashboards and systems to make sure meetings are qualified and things like that. So if there's ever a Band-Aid that needs patching on the BDR org, I'm typically the one to figure out if automation can help fix that up too. So systematically, I've kind of helped the BDR org in general become more efficient, have higher conversion, faster time to value, ultimately leading to more pipeline and less time spent kind of muttering around.
So tell me more. How do you go build a dashboard? Is this like something that lives in the CRM? Are you vibe coding? Let's go. Or is this like a thing in Clay that you can just do?
Yeah, so kind of requires a tech stack.
Let's start tech stack. Go through the tech stack. What do we got?
A couple of things that you'd need in order to build a dashboard. From my experience, I'm sure that there are better, I'm sure there are worse ways to do it. But how I have done it and has been pretty successful is I'll get the CRM to be our main database. Where is this data coming from and how are we going to surface it? Salesforce isn't always the prettiest, so I'm trying to figure out how we can make it a little bit prettier. And the UI, or the front end, would be Lovable. Lovable is extremely easy to use. You type it, you get something amazing out. And then on the back end, I'm using Supabase to help Lovable visualize what data goes where. And lastly, N8N is helping pull that data from Salesforce to Supabase, which eventually gets it in Lovable, making it look all pretty.
Yeah. Do you read? So there's the growth person at Lovable, Alina, and she has a Substack that I love. Have you read that one?
I have not.
You would. It's more broad go to market. It's not go to market engineering, but it's really she's pretty edgy and like. And she kind of tells some interesting hard truths. So it's really good. I'll send it to you as a follow-up. Also recommend that to everyone listening. If you like this topic, you'll like Alina's. And she does a couple talks every so often, and I flag her to watch all her stuff. Okay. So if the CRM is your database, what is Supabase?
Yeah, that's a great question. Supabase helps me organize our CRM data pretty much however I'd like to. Salesforce can be pretty hard to work with from time to time. And what makes it really easy with Supabase is with something like I can't believe we haven't talked about this the whole time. This is the big one. It's like Claude Code. We're talking about Claude Code and Cursor, which for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, Claude Code and Cursor is kind of like what I like to view as an orchestrator. You give APIs and MCPs, which do a relatively similar task, allowing Claude Code to chat with these different systems and softwares. So ultimately, to get back to your question, Claude Code has done an amazing job at grabbing that CRM data, pushing it to Supabase and organizing it in a way that is super easily organized and readable for Lovable to represent.
Whenever you talk about Supabase, do you hear the Nicki Minaj song?
No, I think that might be out of my timeline.
It's called Supabase, but in my mind, Supabase is.
I need to get my culture game up. You always told me twice.
You're on the phone BDRing all the time. You're actually you individually, a guy that has a business degree and not an engineering degree. You're just firing up Claude Code, hopping in the terminal, and saying, "Hey, I've done this front end with Lovable, and I need you to go connect these three things and build me a dashboard." Do Do you design the dashboard and do you like just sketch it out and tell Lovable to build it, or do you just like give it words and it does it, or is there a little standard thing? How do you do the UI and like let's pretend like I said I was your boss and I said, Evan, we need a new dashboard to do this. Like, walk us through the steps of how you connect all this stuff.
So that is exactly what happened with that amount of
That's
context.
typically how. Yes, I have. Yes, I wanted to have these four things. I love the one that has like the little meter that looks like a race car. But other than that, go crazy. Yeah, we all have our favorite like little thing we want.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think the number one thing to do is to gather your customers or your users. And in this instance, my users were the managers. So gather the managers together. What can you not get out of this dashboard? Why do you need to have 3 dashboards open? What would be the best for you? And take a little recording of that meeting and have AI help me mock up a little UI. And from there, it is an iterative process, and it's addicting because immediately after you make one change, you see it get a little bit better, get a little bit better. So my girlfriend definitely lost me for about 2 days to Lovable. But yeah, ultimately turned into a big time saver, consolidating about 3 or 4 different dashboards.
Do you see a world where you could go build a dashboard for each BDR, kind of like whatever they want?
Yes, absolutely.
Drift on you and say, "Hey, Evan, help a friend out. Can you?"
Yeah, absolutely. You could do that. Now, is that the highest leverage thing that I could be doing? Probably not. I could probably be sending them leads or something else. So would I do that? Probably not, but you definitely could.
What if there's another you on the team, like the next you, like, do you have BDRs that are, because you're there, can they go do some of this themselves and you're just like, hey, what are you doing? Like, are they kind of running wild, or has there been a little bit of standardization on this?
No, they get access to a lot of the tools that I have access to. Of course, not all of them, but they get access to a lot of them. And you see the experimentation on the floor every day. If I look at 5 different monitors, I see 5 different things. And they always grab the best of whatever everybody else is doing. And we just love that constant iteration and experimentation. And if something's great, sweet, let's standardize it.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you use that as an input into what you're doing?
What do you mean?
So do you go see like what innovations they're doing and be like, that's a good idea, I'm going to put it into my dashboard or the broader team's set of tools that you're publishing out there?
Yeah, usually I'm more systems, and there's more like one-to-one kind of automations or things that they're working on. But I do love to hear what they are doing, just so I can keep tabs and be like, oh, that's like pretty awesome. That's a thing now. Like I didn't do that.
I wish we had like another hour. These conversations always go so fast. So you don't really have to get too involved with MCP and the protocol layer, because Claude's kind of just connecting, wiring all that together. That's what it's using under the hood. I'm sure you know that. So you are using N8N there. That was interesting. Okay. So anything in the tech stack that you haven't mentioned, you want to give a shout out to?
I'm going to double down on Claude Code or Cursor, whatever you're more comfortable in. I think I started using it, or I guess I ended my BDR tenure using Cursor. I've gotten a couple BDRs on Cursor. It is not just a development tool. I think it's an LLM 10x. You can really customize anything you want about it. You go on YouTube, there's a million tutorials. I think if you're not using that, you will get left behind. And that is like the number one highest leverage thing that you can be doing. Also, pretty naive. I'm not super technical. Learned about GitHub and version control. That's huge for me. I broke stuff all the time. I don't break things anymore. So like that's an amazing new thing for me. Yeah, those are the 2 big ones for me.
And you probably started Cursor and then you outgrew it and went to Claude Code. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. 2 kind of last topics. The other one is, back in the olden days when we have rev ops and sales ops, they would get really frustrated because sales reps are notoriously independent and focused on doing whatever they want to do, be they BDR, SDR, or execs. How do you kind of drive adoption of these tools across the org?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think the biggest thing for me was I was a BDR, albeit it was just for a couple months. But one, these BDRs are my friends. I'm around them every single day. I know what they're doing. I know what their pain points were because I also had them. So that helped me get intimately close with the user's problems, ultimately knowing whatever I was building, I would love to use. And then you start off with a pilot group, and I try it with 2 or 3 BDRs, get their feedback, refine it, and ultimately launch it to the greater group. And once you get a little bit of credibility over some smaller launches, then they start getting excited when the go-to-market engineer is about to put out something new because the last 3 have been hits.
You guys are international, so do you take a lot of the stuff you do and like send it to I think you have an office in London or something, somewhere in Europe, and is that exported, or you're all kind of like doing your own little thing?
Yeah, so we definitely try and get anything that we build for the Americas out to London as soon as possible, albeit the time zone doesn't always help me out with that. So it might be a week delay, but eventually they do get it as well.
Don't tell anyone I said this, but pro tip, you've got to say, this would be so much better if I could just go to London for a week and like really get them sped up.
We're on the same wavelength.
There's a direct flight. It's you got to go to London. It's amazing. I love it. It's actually good. But beware, the Starbucks are smaller. So you got to order 2 ventis instead of 1. Pro tip. You're probably too young to drink. You're like a monster guy. I know where this is going to go already. Where do you see go-to-market engineering going in the future? Like you've made a lot of progress. What are the next big projects, just like in the next couple months, that you're like just super fired up to go chop wood at?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of 2 questions there. I guess first starting with like the future of go-to-market engineering outside of Pendo.
Big picture, yeah.
Yeah, the bigger picture is I think the go-to-market engineer role has many hats, and we're already starting to see a split. Like there's the Band-Aid go-to-market engineers that are doing the quick fixes and putting out fires or making small things more efficient. And you can kind of see that in their pay as well. But then you have the go-to-market engineers that are making anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000, making org-wide infrastructure that will outlast them and not have tribal knowledge. And they both have the same job title. So I think eventually we're going to start seeing a split of job titles. And even here, I mean, there's multiple go-to-market engineers here doing very different work that I'm doing. It's amazing work, but we could not be doing more different work as well. And we wear the same title.
How many go-to-market engineers are at Pendo at this point?
Currently 3, knock on wood 4.
Okay, interesting. Huh. Okay.
And then I think
I got to get them on next.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just kidding.
What I'm most excited about is I think that the go-to-market engineering has a great potential for leadership trajectory. I mean, I'm sitting right here, kind of right in the middle of systems and data and ultimately strategy. And I think the people that run those skill sets today are going to start running the revenue orgs of the future. Super excited about that. And for all my BDRs that I'm looking at on the floor right now, if they're listening to this, I think another big one that there's a misconception is that my job is not going to ruin BDR's job. It's not going to take out any BDR's job. If you look at the Clays of the world, if you look at the Anthropics of the world, they're hiring BDR managers and they're hiring BDRs left and right. The job of the go-to-market engineer is to 10x the efficiency of the BDRs. So not replacing reps, it kind of just replaces that soul-crushing part that makes the reps leave.
Yeah, I was trying to explain this to a reporter because they love the doomsday side of this whole equation. Like, oh my God, people are 10 times more important, therefore you'll need 1/10 of them. Like, or you get a BDR that's 10 times as productive. Now I want to hire all I can possibly get my hands on. Whereas before I was like, is there an ROI here or not? You make them 10 times more productive. You're like, pour on the fuel. I think people forget that growing orgs like a Pendo, they tend to lean towards that other side versus everyone always uses a company that like reduced headcount and they can blame AI, but it's because the company's not doing, like Block is one that's not doing well in payments. But they kind of like used AI to throw it under the bus. But there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree more with you.
Last topic, any exciting, cool new things you want to do like in your current role that you're, any new tools or anything that have got you fired up?
Yeah, every day I'm excited to fire up Claude Code. Claude Code tells me what new features it has or what new repos to go look for. So I'm always excited. I probably text my boss is running with Claude Code now, so I'm super excited when I figure out something new there. But I think my ultimate like next step and big project is I'm really excited to get that Signal web up and running fully. Right now we have a couple signals that are autonomous. And I want it to be an extremely autonomous product where we just have a big spider web up all of the time. And those BDRs can be outbounding kind of subconsciously all the time. And I hope that system is going to outlast me and they can keep adding to it and it becomes the core infrastructure of Pendo's BDR org.
Well, Evan, thanks for thanks for being so generous with your time and sharing what you guys are doing. I think this is going to help all the founders in the Triangle in North Carolina really understand how you can leverage this function and a lot of the tools you mentioned. So really appreciate you guys, and then shout out to Pendo for letting you come on. Really appreciate the mindset of supporting everyone in the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Scott.
Thanks. Triangle Tweener Talks is hosted by Scott Wingo, presented and produced by Triangle Tweener Fund, with creative assets and design support from our friends at Walk West. That's it for today's episode. A big thank you to our guests, sponsors, and the team that makes this podcast possible. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves the startup stories coming out of the Triangle. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time on Triangle Tweener Talks.